going to react to some of your lovely comments. Once again, We Are Tottenham Army have been super strong in the comments, and let's see what comments they've been sending in to us.
All right, first up, where am I? We have, Ken Goodspeed 6380 says at 11:50, Grealish is a no-brainer. This is in reaction to our transfer targets tier list. He says Grealish is a no-brainer. All he needs is a manager that plays him in the right position and nor struck on the left wing when most of the players is through the middle or on the right. His passing ability alone would be worth it. Give him the ball and watch what he can do. No-brainer getting Grealish. I mean,
definitely not a no-brainer because he hasn't been at that level for a long time now. So, I mean, there is definitely a possibility he can get back to that. But when you're looking at the wages that he's on and the uncertainty surrounding Jack Grealish,
also our lack of squad numbers,
I mean, it's hard to think that he'll be a success, or we can even get him in.
Yeah, exactly. I just think I don't think it's a no-brainer. It's definitely something that it's hard to take. And Condon 10 agrees. He says off-the-ball signings like Rashi, Grealish, Garnacho will be awful for us. Werner provided this. Let's be logical. We need someone who can take their man on, finish, and not get injured. Do you really think these guys can do this?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to disagree. I think the one I have probably the most hope for out of that list are Rashford and Garnacho. But I think, again, like, look at Rashford's wages he's on, look at Grealish's wages he's on. Garnacho is going to come in here and is he going to act all big bollocks and think like he's bigger than the club and demand to start every week? I just think there's just too much going against most of these players, so there's probably no point even considering it.
I agree. I think, I think we need young, hungrier players who we can convince can make an impact. And I know Garnacho's young, but there's a lot of red flags for me. And I think with Rashford and Grealish, big wages, I think you should be paying those big wages for players who you're convinced are going to be superstars and a star for your team and really be something special for your team. And I just don't think right now you can be convinced of that with Rashford and Grealish.
Yeah.
CGet7252 says, I'd trust Frank over anyone else if he picks an unknown over a £60 million player chosen by someone else. His track record speaks for itself. Everyone is an expert until they're not. Leave it to Frank.
100%. I agree with that wholeheartedly, man. Frank's decision is going to be the right decision for the club. And, his track record does speak for itself. He's shown it at Brentford consistently that he can sign these players and make them into stars.
So we're not going to start criticising the club for having to Google players?
It depends if it's Frank's decision or the club's decision. That's what it comes down to.
We're never going to know that, are we?
Yeah.
Volkov127 says it's simple. We are in the Champions League this season, and for us to even compete in that competition, we need players that will make our first 11 better. We don't need unproven in the Premier League or under 20s. Oven-ready players are needed, at least 2 to 3 mid-20s, been there, done that types. It's not really hard to work out. We are a mid-table thinking club. Yeah. I think it's in reaction to the Arnaud links.
Yeah, look, it is hard to disagree with that, but just because we think that way, it doesn't mean a player can't come in and flourish. A player can come in and flourish, but history tells us at Tottenham that usually doesn't happen when we sign these kind of unknown players, albeit there are some cases where it has happened. But, I guess in the situation that we're in with Thomas Frank, you've got to trust that Frank knows what he's doing, and if Frank wants a player to come through the door, we have to back it.
But as well, I think Liverpool, if you look at Liverpool's transfer policy, like recently, I know they just signed Wirtz for big money, and they've also signed Alisson and Van Dijk, but people gloss over, like, all the rest of their signings were fairly decent value, but for also a lot of players who are well known. Gakpo was about 45 million.
Yeah, he was
McAllister, I'm saying, he was well known.
Yeah.
McAllister, 40 million.
Yeah.
Gravenberch, Diaz was 50 million. He was quite well known. So, like, those are the kind of deals as well we just don't do.
Yeah, because these players are all commanding big wages.
But how big are their wages?
I'll tell you exactly how big their wages. I think they're fairly big.
What, are they all on over 200 grand a week?
Not 200, no. And we could have had a lot of those players, like Gakpo. We probably could have had. I'm sure we were linked with.
Honestly, Nunes was 70 million.
So Gakpo's on 120. Jota's on 140. Szoboszlai's on 120. Nunes is on 140. Chiesa's on 150. Gravenberch 150. McAllister 150. I mean,
these are the wages we should be paying,
but we're not. That's the problem. We've only got like 3 or 4 players over 100. Never mind 150. So I mean, it is the wage structure that is holding us back. It's not the amount that we spend on players. It's the wages that we give out.
They've got it. Like, Liverpool should really be the club that should be the kind of model we're looking at.
But it's not the model we look at Brentford and Brighton.
I know, that's what I'm saying. And then I think we'd rather pay for a player like a Brighton's level and then incrementally increase his wages than pay for someone like a McAllister. Zakal 76 says Modric was an unknown, Bergvall was an unknown, Son was an unknown, Van de Ven was an unknown, Kane people doubted. You just don't know who's going to make it.
Yeah, I mean, those are the good cases. First of all, I don't think Son was an unknown. Son was, people did know who Son was, playing at Bayer Leverkusen. Having said that, there are loads of cases of these unknown players that haven't worked out, a lot more than the ones that have worked out.
Agreed. So, yeah, it's all good pointing to the ones who are unknown, and then they're much rarer, aren't they? Mark Shark 1613 says we can try all we like to convince ourselves that this Kalimuendo guy is a good signing. The reality is that we've done that for decades now.
Yeah, the only difference is now that we've got a manager that's proven that he kind of takes these players and does well with them, and the kind of shift in data-led recruitment, which we haven't done in the past. I don't know what made us sign the likes of Nkudu and NG if it wasn't data-led, but the manager is very much a data-led manager with his staff behind him, as well as Johan Lang as well. So you just got to pray and hope that all these guys work together well and bring in players that are going to work with this football club.
Yeah, I think, look, we're going in a new direction again with Frank knows, and his scouting team, the scouting department he used to work for had a very good record. So let's hope if he's identified someone, you got to be confident that they can be a good player for us. The known guy 2221 says Spurs fans, Semeno 16 goal contributions last season, insane, perfect, crazy, good, pay 70 million for him at any cost. Sonny 22 goal contributions last season, playing out position, garbage, terrible, he's washed, sell him for cheap now. What the F is wrong with this picture? Is there do we have shiny new toy syndrome when it comes to people like Semeno, and when you compare it to like what we have with Son?
I mean, I don't know, because I've been saying all stream that I prefer to keep Son than bring in Semeno. So, I mean, I can
But a lot of fans get excited about Semeno.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to get excited about new signings coming through the club, but a lot of signings that look, there are a lot of players that we can potentially upgrade on, but I just don't know if Sonny's one of them.
The known guy again 2221 says it's utmost ridiculous for anyone to want to sell Son for 30 million and then use 50 or 60 to get Grealish, Garnacho or Tell to replace Son. Sonny was horribly used by Ange and still had 27 and 22 goal contributions in the last 2 years, and none of his replacements can get half.
Exactly, that's what I've been saying. Exactly what I've been saying. Like, if Son's gonna leave, you need to bring in someone that can get as many goal contributions as him, or you have to get a couple that can share it around and get to those levels. And do we have that at Tottenham? I mean, we don't know, because we're going into a bit of unknown with Thomas Frank. Like, Thomas Frank got 20 out of Mbeumo, 20 out of Wissa, 10 or 11 out of Sade. So we need something similar to that next season.
Jacob Bannister 4130 says, stop saying he would have loved a player like that at Brentford. We are not Brentford. We have bigger aspirations than Brentford, as well as a bigger budget. Frank did a good job at Brentford, yes, but the job he did at Brentford would get him fired here at Tottenham.
Yeah, which is true. Which is very true.
I think I've said he would have liked a player like that at Brentford. Not in the case that means he's good enough for Tottenham. My point being is, obviously, at Brentford he overachieved with limited resources, and he's had to really get all the kind of quality he could out of that team. And when I say he would have loved that, like he would have loved to have had a player like that at Brentford, because in terms of the quality, it's a lot more than we would have had at Brentford. And so he brings that over to Tottenham. That kind of quality, hopefully, like would be a good amount. And hopefully, if he gets more quality out of him, or gets as much out of him as possible, maybe it could be good. But I understand what he's trying to say. Obviously, just because he's good enough for Brentford doesn't mean he should be good enough for Tottenham. I agree with that.
For sure.
And last one, Daniel Hewson 8866 says, delighted with Tell signing. He impressed mightily at Bayern and is still only 19-20. Yes, he's raw, but he's very talented and needs development, coaching, maturity. But trust me, we're not going to regret this signing as we did Vinicius and Fernandes. This signing cannot and will not have a serious impact on other signings. Well, it kind of already has, because it just limits the numbers naturally. But then, you've obviously decided to bring him in, but it can't not have an impact on other signings because you've picked a squad space for him.
Yeah.
So that already impacts the potential other signings you could have made.
Exactly.
But doesn't mean it was the wrong thing to do.
Yeah. Also doesn't mean it was the right thing to do. I think time will tell, won't it? Next season, if we see a replication of what he's shown at Spurs so far over the whole course of next season, no one's going to be happy with that. Mm-hmm. If he does kick on and Frank does get the best out of him, like some people are predicting, like I think he can, do a lot better, it still might not be good enough. He needs to get a hell of a lot better next season if it's going to be considered a success.
Well, not necessarily.
Yeah, it will.
Huh?
It will.
I mean, I'm saying over next season, he has to get a lot better, yes, but he could get, I don't know. Yeah, he has to get, okay, fine. But I'm saying over the long term, he doesn't have to hit Sonny levels next season for it to be a success.
No, but he has to hit, it's his task pretty much. If Sonny is going to go, it's his task to replace Son next season. That's what he's going to be judged on as well.
But that's not what his whole career is going to be judged on at Tottenham. That's what next season is.
Yeah, but we're a Champions League team next season, and if he doesn't hit Son levels, it's probably not likely we'll be a Champions League team the season after.
Maybe. Yeah, I get what you're saying. It depends on what other players are doing as well.
Yeah, of course. There's
but
loads of variables that go into it.
Yeah, I'm saying, but Tell's, I don't think if we've signed Tell on a 6-year deal, I don't think his time with Tottenham is going to be defined by what happens next season, unless it's such a major disaster that we have to sell him. I don't think it's going to be defined by just next season. I'm hoping anyway it won't be.
Well, it will be at the end of next season.
At the end of next season it will, yeah, but that's just one season. But I'm saying in terms of whether the signing has been a success or not, that will be determined unless it's next season there's a major disaster.
But at the end of next season, it will be defined on next season. At the end of the season after, it will be defined on that season. Like, that's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
So we got a long wait to actually define him completely when it's all said and done, but he's still going to be massively judged on next season.
He'll be judged. I'm not saying judge on whether he's good or not. I'm just saying thinking about this signing, like what you're saying is you're kind of going into his next season, he's going to be judged whether this signing was a success based on how much he improves next season. I don't think it's necessarily true. I think next season will be judged on that, but the whole signing, I don't think he has to hit exceptional levels next season for the whole signing to be judged a success or failure necessarily.
Yeah,
is my only point.
But yeah, it's true in terms of the general output. But if he doesn't have a good season this year coming, then we're going to be sitting here in the summer saying, you know what, we need another left winger.
Yeah, true.
So look, that is your comments. That is the stream for you guys today.